So Mike Hughes, his name was removed from the PUP list, physically unable to perform list, which is really, really good. But real quick before we get into that, just found out the Vikings released Mediokr, the cornerback that they brought in recently, as well as Jordan Taylor, who you thought was going to really make a name for himself and really challenge for the wide receiver 3 spot to where he would be in contention with a Chad Beebe, and now all of a sudden he's gone. And Chad Beebe, while we're talking about him, he looked like he doesn't want the job either. So it's all open for grabs, the wide receiver 3 position. And Mediokr, you were thinking as a cornerback that if all else fails, he would be the guy, the veteran that has been on a handful of teams in the last couple or so years, that he was going to be the guy, the last resort to fill in for cornerback depth, and he's gone all of a sudden too. So really disappointing how those two positions have really panned out for the Vikings group. Now, Mike Hughes, he's been removed from the PUP list, which is fantastic news, and that brings me back to, imagine, do you guys remember the start of the offseason? It was, Mike Hughes, don't worry about it. Just take your time. It's all good. Take your time. Come back when you're ready, because we're all good with the cornerback group, baby. And now, after Xavier Rhodes, after he looks like some sauce out there on the field, he looks even worse than 2018's Xavier Rhodes, and Holton Hill getting suspended twice for 8 games. Luckily, I don't think he got suspended for that helmet hit on Paxton Lynch. I know he got fined, but luckily he didn't get suspended for that either. We are now in a state of chaos with the cornerback group. So before it was Mike Hughes, take your time, come back. It's all good. It's all gravy. And now when we hear Mike Hughes has been removed from the PUP list, it's, oh, thank God. Thank God we have some sort of life left in us for the cornerback group. Now, that's not to say that he's going to be ready to go in week 1. He needs to ease himself in. If anything, we're looking at a body, just an extra body to put out there. But we got to be really careful with how we critique Mike Hughes when he eventually does return. It's going to take him a little bit of a while to get back into game shape. He may be in physical shape, but he needs to get back in game shape. And so the thing that this brings me back to is that I thought my only thing with this team coming into this season was the offense. That is the biggest question mark, is the offense, because I naturally assumed that the Vikings defense all around would be great. I thought that they may take a dip a little bit compared to last year. Maybe they'll at least be top 7 in the league as far as defense, but I'm a little bit concerned. Now I'm actually more confident in the offense. I know Kirk Cousins, he looked really bad. He looked really awful against the Cardinals on Saturday, but I really have faith in this offense. I like what I've seen from the offensive line. I like what I've seen from the running game. Adam Thielen, Diggs, they're going to continue to do what it is that they do. Kirk Cousins, just don't screw up. That's all we're asking. Make those long plays when you're called for it, play action, all that stuff, but don't screw up. I'm actually more confident in the offense than the overall defense. And, for instance, the first level defensive line, I'm solid. I'm good on. The defensive line hasn't been all that great, but I think Linval Joseph and Shamar Stephen's absence has played a huge role into why the defensive line hasn't, the first team defensive line hasn't looked all that great. When they return for the start of the season, you'll see a big difference. The second level, the linebackers, last year they were the weak point in our defense. This year, I think they're pretty good. I think they're going to be solid this year. Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, they're going to be just fine. The back end, that third level outside of Harrison Smith and to some degree Anthony Harris, because in the preseason he's been a little bit out of position too when it comes to the passing plays, but he still made a couple of plays, so I'm going to leave him out of this. Specifically with the cornerback group, we are in trouble. We have serious problems, and it's bad enough that Xavier Rhodes looked terrible and we have no doubt. If Holton Hill was still active, if he was going to be active for the start of the season, now granted in the preseason he hasn't looked great either, but let's just assume he would go back to last year where I thought that Holton Hill was our best cover corner last year. Xavier Rhodes was our worst, and somehow Xavier Rhodes looks even worse than last year. If Holton Hill was still available, I would still say that's fine. We're all good. But now that he's going to be gone half the season, I think we're in serious trouble. Chris Boyd, he hasn't done anything worth a damn either. I was saying that's the guy that you should look out for, the guy from Texas, 7th round draft pick, but he hasn't done anything either. We are in a world of trouble because teams are not going to be afraid to throw the ball on Rhodes or any of our cornerbacks for that matter. And this brings me to this. What we've seen in the preseason, teams with a vanilla offense has been really shredding our secondary, quite honestly, our first team secondary. But this brings me to this. The Legion of Boom years ago, when they were really the Legion of Boom, Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, arguably the best cornerback, and they had the other safety. Goodness, I am drawing a blank here. The guy, he left. He had the neck surgery or something like that. God, I'm drawing a blank. Maybe I'll come up with it later. But the Legion of Boom, the OG Legion of Boom, Richard Sherman, he did a film review with cameras and some media members, and he was talking about how something that he learned was if a team exposes you schematically, so if they make you look really, really bad 1 week schematically speaking, then you should really expect the following teams after that to look at that film and attempt to do the same thing. And what he said was we worked on what we got exposed on with these certain teams, and that way we knew when these teams were lining up to do it, we knew exactly what to do. The point that I'm getting at with the Minnesota Vikings is 2017 NFC Championship game and last year, the Rams game. Nope, they showed you that they weren't afraid to throw on our secondary, and especially the Rams game last year where they even got Anthony Barr involved. They really, really purposely got Anthony Barr involved in the passing game and passing defense as well, and they exposed him. You have to expect, especially what you've seen in the preseason, you have to expect these teams to really go after us in the cornerback group to where you need Harrison Smith and Anthony Harris. You can't have them just all of a sudden shuffling around and moving up to the second level and coming off blitzes. Suddenly, you really need them now to be our safety blanket when our cornerbacks give up big plays to have help over the top. And I have this team going 11-5. I'm not going to go back on my predictions. I already made it. I'm going to stick with it. But I got to tell you something, folks. With the state of our cornerback group, some of these wins that I have for the Vikings, they're looking a little bit funny now because, again, you have to expect these teams to go after us. And these teams that have an aerial assault type of offensive attack, for instance, week 1, the Atlanta Falcons. I thought, I get it, it's any given Sunday, anything can happen. But suddenly, that was a game where I said, oh, that's a wash. We got that, no big deal. Suddenly, Matt Ryan, MVP candidate last year, or at least MVP numbers last year. Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, that aerial attack that they have, that's looking a little bit funny now. The Green Bay Packers, I thought that they would split. I still think they'll split with the Green Bay Packers, but Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, maybe Jimmy Graham will have a resurgence. That's something to look forward to or to be wary of as well. Suddenly, this was the easy 2 wins that I thought we would get, but suddenly Matthew Stafford, Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, Jesse James, TJ Hawkinson, those players that they have, Matthew Stafford, he airs it out. They're going to have a much more balanced attack with the running game, sure. But suddenly those 2 games look funny now too. And then the LA Chargers with Phillip Rivers, he's going to air it out. These games are looking a lot funnier now. And if our cornerback is going to be weak, if they're giving up big plays, if Xavier Rhodes is running like if he's running like a tortoise out there just trying to catch people and can't keep up with anybody, and you're putting Kirk Cousins in a position to, hey, go toe-for-toe with Phillip Rivers. Go toe-for-toe with Matt Ryan. Go toe-for-toe with Aaron Rodgers. Granted, he did that in week 2 last year against Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, but to expect him to do that consistently, I don't know. I don't think that's the wise thing to ask for because this was a team where defense is going to be great. The offensive line is going to be great. Everything is here to support Kirk Cousins and not have him put the team on his back. You have to expect these teams to go after us with big-time passing plays. The Chiefs, whether our secondary was great or not, I already expected the Chiefs to win anyway. They're just a special, special team. But you have to be wary when it comes to that. Richard Sherman said it. If a team exposes you and they make you look really bad, expect the next team to do it. And you have to expect these teams, because before, teams were afraid to go after us. They were afraid of. They're not afraid anymore. You have to expect it. Now, our defensive line, you're putting our defensive line, our front seven, in a really peculiar position to where they have to get nonstop pressure to cut the time down to where the quarterback gets rid of the ball. If you can shorten that length, that means you eliminate the passing plays. But to expect that all the time, that's a lot to expect. We're in serious, serious trouble. I'm going to stick with that record. But my God, Mike Hughes, he's back. That's great. Come back when you can. But we're in serious, serious trouble. And I hope they can figure it out. But I'm sorry, especially with Xavier Rhodes, I think we're pretty much, this is who he is. So anyway, we do this 3 times a week. Mediokr, best sports podcast with Realistic Randy. Next podcast will be tomorrow. Doing a preview, not really a preview, but things that I'm looking forward to in the last preseason game against Buffalo. You can follow me on Twitter at realistic_Randy. My personal YouTube channel, Realistic Randy. We'll see you then.